Are you
Yes.
ready? Yes, I am.
Yes.
Are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Yes, I am.
Very good,
Good.
very good. Welcome, students. Good morning. Welcome back to a new lesson of science. Now, if you can remember from last week, we spoke about, who can tell me, the ecosystems, life and the environment, and the different relationship between the different environments, ecosystems, habitats, all these different types of things. Now today I want to carry on page 83, and we will also do some extra in the next slide. You will see. So we looked at some of the aquatic ecosystems. Remember the ones in the water, and the habitatory ecosystem, which is the ones which are on soil or on the earth or on ground. But let's quickly just go through the food sources. I just want us to first look at the different food sources that some animals might be able to eat and what animals like to eat before we move into our food chain and where and how the food chain works. So firstly, I'll read here on page, what are we now on page, move this, 83, page 83 if you want to follow along. So number 2 here, food source relationships. So all living things need to eat. We also need to eat. If we don't eat, we get very hungry and very angry or very irritated because we need food to live. Now, animals like cows and deer, they only eat plants, while other animals such as tigers eat meat. Now, plants grow by taking up organic and inorganic substances from the soil. So yes, it uses the soil as food, the plants. And some come from droppings of cows, deers, and tigers. All make the soil nice and fertile, and all the dead bodies get decomposed and make it nice and fertile for plants to grow. But in reproduction within a habitat, how do habitats reproduce? Now, living things must reproduce to sustain their species. So every living thing has to create more of itself by reproduction, because nothing lives forever. Everything dies eventually. So for us to create more life and make sure that there is life moving forward, we need to have babies and to reproduce. And so do the animals. They also want to have babies and need to have babies for their prolonged longevity, for them to keep living on this earth for a longer time. So if you look at aquatic animals, reproduce in water. Some lay eggs, while others give birth to their young in the water. Aquatic plants, such as water hyacinth, produce underwater sprouts. So they create also asexual reproduction. We looked at in plants, but they create small sprouts underneath the water. Very smart plants, those ones. Animals and plants that live above ground use the land, the meadow or forest to produce shelter for their reproduction. Right. And nursery sources. Now, nursery is a baby home where we keep our babies. So some animals hide the nursery so that the other animals cannot find them. So the babies can grow until they are big enough to survive in the wild. So living things use their habitat as a nursery to provide shelter for the young. A mangrove forest, like we have in Krabi, provides good shelter for a baby nursery. And aquatic animals may depend on this to reproduce. So for aquatic animals, some of them might use corals or coral reefs as shelter. So that you can also find in the islands around Thailand. At the bottom of the ocean, you will find the coral reefs that will help to protect some baby fish so that they can grow and become bigger. Okay, and plants use their habitat surroundings as a place for their seeds to germinate and sprout to grow. Now, plants don't really need a lot of protection. They can't really protect themselves because they cannot move. Yes, some plants might give off a smell that will keep some animals away and they don't want to eat the plant because they smell bad. But usually plants can't walk to a new place because they are stuck in the ground. Okay. Now our main topic, that was just how we reproduce and where we find food and all these things. But our main topic today will be the food chain. The food chain. Now the food chain is the way energy flows. If you look at humans, we are at the top of the food chain. We are the apex predators. We are the most dangerous things on the planet. Why? Because we kill and destroy a lot of things. And we can use our brain to be smarter than animals. So we are in control of animals. But we have to first look at some vocabulary. We have 6 words here. 5. Oh, 6. The first one, we start off with the producer. The producer. Now, a producer is plants, because plants produce food for other animals. They also produce oxygen, so we can breathe. So here at the bottom, we start off with the producer. Producer, creating food. Now we have the consumer. Now the consumer is someone that takes. He takes, consume. I have maybe an apple. I take the apple and I bite it. I consume the apple. I'm eating it. So I'm a consumer. I take for myself. So in the beginning, we have the grass that grows, or the plants, which is the producer. Then we also have small animals that eat from the plants. They are the primary consumer. They can be like a locust or a grasshopper, can be a primary consumer, eating the little leaves of plants for food. But we have 3 types of consumers. We have the primary meaning number 1. Secondary meaning number 2. Tertiary meaning number 3. We use the same words in my country for school. You go to the primary school, it is grade 1 to grade 7. You go to the secondary school, which is high school, is grade 8 to grade 12. And then you go to tertiary school, which is your college or university. So primary 1, secondary 2, tertiary 3. Remember that. Primary 1, secondary 2, tertiary 3. You can say the first, second, and third consumer as well. So the food chain, what happens is we have the plants. So the first consumer, the primary consumer, eats some of the plants. So it eats the plants. Now it grows and it creates more babies and carries on producing more and eating more. Now we have the primary consumer is also food for the next consumer. So maybe we have a grasshopper. The grasshopper eats the leaves or the grass, and the frog will eat the grasshopper. So now our primary consumer is then also creating a food source for the next one. So then the second one eat the grasshopper. So now our secondary consumer, which is our frog, here on this picture, he now has enough food and energy to make more baby frogs and to produce more of himself. Now the frog will also then be food for something else. So the frog as the secondary consumer will then be food for the third or tertiary consumer to eat the frog. Delicious. And that can be a snake. A snake will eat frogs. The snake will eat rats, will eat a lot of different things, but he will eat the frog. So now we have the grass that the grasshopper eat. Then the grasshopper gets eaten by the frog. The frog eats grasshopper. Now we have the frog, and now the snake come and eat the frog. So now we have our tertiary consumer, which is the snake. Now the snake has enough food and enough energy to make more snakes. So now the cycle continues. Now we have more snakes. Now who eats the snake? The apex predator. Now the apex predator is the top of the food chain. It is usually like here we can see a falcon or a hawk or an eagle, depending on what you want to call it. They are apex predators. Nothing eats them. They don't get eaten by anything. It's like a lion. A lion is an apex predator. Nothing eats the lion. The lion eats what it wants, but nothing eats the lion. The same with tiger, or the same with a hyena, or with a falcon, eagle, or maybe a vulture. No one wants to eat them. They're the top of the food chain. The top of the food chain. Apex. Apex means the top. Apex means the top. At the pinnacle, the apex predator is the one on top, at the very top of the food chain. Now what happens? Now the apex predator maybe becomes old and it dies. But finish. It's died. Now what happens to the predator? It will start decomposing. Now what happens with food if you leave it in the sun? It starts becoming smelly and rotten. Now the same happens to the apex predator. So this ego will die and his body will start breaking apart. But who is doing that process? Our decomposers. Now the decomposer is microorganisms or bacteria or fungi like mushrooms. They are all very small organisms that feed off dead things. So they will feed off the dead animal. And when they feed off the dead animal, that helps to give nutrients to the soil. And where does our producer come from? The soil. So now the plant has enough energy from the soil to grow. And that is our cycle. From the plant to the first consumer, the second consumer, the third consumer, to our apex predator, to the decomposer, which is our microorganism, then going back to the plant. So it's a circle. We call it also the food chain or the circle of life. The circle of life. Now we as humans, we are also apex predators. We are also apex predators. No one eats humans, you know, but we eat everything. In some places in the world, in Thailand, you can get grasshoppers to eat. Yes, you can eat frogs. You probably won't eat an eagle, but you might eat a chicken as a bird. And snakes, yes, some people might like snakes to eat, some people don't. I don't eat snakes. Just I don't like them. Never wanted to eat one. But yeah, we can eat mostly anything as humans. So if we look at our important 6 words we have here. Let's see who listened. Give me an example of a producer. Give me one example of a producer. What produces? What starts off the food chain? What is a producer? What did you guys talk? If you guys are talking in chat about something you should not be talking about, if it's not about school, I will kick you out. I'm going to kick you out of the classroom, okay? If you're talking about all funny things on the chat, I will kick you out. If anyone's saying something other than about science in this classroom, I'm going to kick you out of the classroom, okay? You will not come back in. So if you're not going to listen, then why are you in the class in the first place? If you don't want to learn, I'm not forcing you to be here. I don't come to your house, tell you to come to class. If you don't want to learn, leave. Very easy. Then you leave. Okay. I'll keep an eye on the chat. If you guys are sending stuff in the chat that is not supposed to be there, I'll kick you out. Okay. Now, someone give me an example of a producer. We just talked about it. What is the producer? What is the producer? Just hold on before you answer. Let me just kick out these people. Remove. Goodbye. Remove. Okay, there's one gone. Where's the next one? Not talking about the wrong things in the classroom. Wait, let me just quickly find these kids. There you go. Next one. Remove. Goodbye. Out of my class. Okay, so Boom and Yoramut, you are not in the class anymore. And Tantan as well. Goodbye. Where's Tantan? You are not talking about school in class. You are having your own conversation. So goodbye. Remove. Out of the classroom. Okay. So now already we have 3 kids not in the classroom anymore. I remove them for not paying attention. It's very simple. If you don't want to be here, you don't have to. So the producer, what I said was, producer is grass, is the first producer. Grass or plants can be our first producer. Okay. What will be the primary consumer, the first one to eat the grass? What do we think? What is the first one to eat the grass? Give me any animal that likes to eat grass. Anyone? Take a guess.
Answer.
Yeah, you must give me an answer if you have one.
Oh, a worm.
A worm. A worm will eat grass. Yes, a worm will eat grass. But for this picture, I put a grasshopper. But a worm is also correct. Very good. It's also correct. Well done. What is our second one? our second one, second consumer, secondary consumer, the second one. Who will eat the grasshopper?
Frog.
A frog. Yes, the frog will eat the grasshopper. Is there any other animal that like to eat a grasshopper? Have you guys ever seen the praying mantis? Let me quickly find a picture of a praying mantis. I'll show you the praying mantis. This one, it looks like a very small, innocent animal, but this one is one of the big insect killers. New share. Praying mantis. This is how a praying mantis looks like. Now this one also likes to eat grasshopper. He likes to eat grasshoppers, this one. So that can also be a secondary consumer. Okay. Now who's going to eat the frog for the tertiary consumer? The third one. Who's going to eat the frog?
Snake.
Again, sorry?
Snake.
Snake. Yeah, on this picture we have the snake. The snake can eat the frog. There's a lot of things that might want to eat the frog. But look at this beautiful dragon snake here I found on the internet. Oh, very beautiful snake. But the snake will eat the frog. Okay, the apex predator. Who's going to eat the snake? Who's going to eat the snake?
Dog.
Yeah, we have a dog to eat the snake. If they catch it, we can have.
I think is angel.
I think is Pangpon.
Okay, okay.
No.
Angel.
English only.
Oh,
Pangpon Tok.
it can be you. You can eat the snake if you want to. But
Angel.
for this example, we put an eagle or a falcon. But we can also put a mongoose, like a mongoose or a squirrel. Some squirrels eat snakes or kill snakes. But who's going to eat the eagle? Not a lot of animals eat the eagle. So what happens to the eagle is the eagle becomes old and dies. Or maybe it becomes sick and dies. So then his body goes to the ground. And then all the small little microorganisms, the fungi and the small things, eat them, eat them, eat them, eat them. And then we have these ones that decompose. So what happens with decompose is at the top level of the ground. When we look at the ground, like soil, the top level is usually the humus, which is a layer of living organisms. So that living organisms eat stuff that are dying or is dead. They eat them and break apart their bodies. And then they produce energy in the soil for the plants. So if we draw this picture, we draw lines here, we start from here. Then we go to here. Then from a grasshopper, we go to the frog. From the frog to the snake. From the snake to the eagle. From the eagle to the small bacteria, microorganisms. Now these ones here give energy again to the plants to grow, to give food to that. And so the cycle goes on and on. But we also get a shorter life cycle. This one is a full life cycle. We can get a shorter one. Now, what do you think? How can we make it shorter? Let me show you an example. I'll draw it for you on the whiteboard. Where's my whiteboard? Where's my whiteboard? Oops. So we have first, we have grass. We start with grass. Then we move from grass to a cow or cattle or beef. Cow, cattle or beef. So now our grass is the producer, the grass. Now the cattle or cow or beef is the primary consumer. He's the first one to eat the grass. Now, the next one is us, humans. We eat the beef. So we are not the secondary consumer. We are apex predator. Apex predator. So this life cycle only has 3 examples. We have here, let me change the color. We have the producer. Here we have the primary consumer. And here we have the apex predator, which is us humans. So we are missing out on the, I missed one step. Let's see if you can find it. Missed one step. We're missing the secondary and tertiary consumers. We cut them out. We don't need them. We just eat the cow. It's delicious. Or we eat the chicken. The chicken eat the seed. We eat the chicken. But there's one that has to come inside here. Where's one? There's another one that has to be inserted here. Which one? Which one? Who can tell me? What happens when the human dies? Let me change my picture a little bit to make it better. Do here. Let me go. Humans. Wrong color. There we go. Humans. That's not nice. Wait. Change. Come closer here. Think about the last one. There's one more. There's one more. From the humans. What is the last one we need? What is the last one we need? The decomposers. The decomposers, which is the bacteria. Bacteria or fungi or microorganisms, which is a very big word. Microorganisms. So they are the one before the end. So they are the last one in that chain. And they are our, what's the word? What's the word? Decomposers. Decomposers. They decompose. Okay. So food chains differ. This one only has 4. The one we looked at had 6. Some might only have 1 or 2. It depends. It's always different. But I want us to look, okay, let's look at this picture. I want us to practice these 6 words before we finish the lesson. I want us to practice these 6 words, okay? So all together, I will say it, and then you say it back to me. So we start with the first one, producer.
ก่อนเลยนี่เอาไว้นี่อะไรกล้วยไข่แล้วกล้วยไข่
All together, I want you to say after me, producer.
Producer.
Very good, Leon. Who else? Who else? Come, let's practice these words. These are our vocabulary words. We need to practice them. Producer.
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 Producer. Oh, one more time. We do it 3 times. Producer.
Everyone together.
It's your time to practice and make mistake. It's okay. You can practice these words because some are a little bit tricky. The next one, primary consumer.
Primary consumer.
Very good. Primary consumer. Consumer is a taker. Primary consumer.
Primary consumer.
Yes, very good. Next one, secondary consumer.
Secondary consumer.
Secondary consumer.
Secondary consumer.
Last time, secondary consumer.
Secondary consumer.
Very good. And the fourth one, tertiary consumer.
Tertiary consumer.
Tertiary consumer. Let me hear.
Tertiary consumer.
Okay, one more time. I want to hear the first one clearly. Tertiary consumer.
Tertiary consumer.
Very good, very good. Well done. That's very good pronunciation. Excellent. That's not an easy word to pronounce, but you pronounce it very beautifully. Well done. The last two is apex predator.
Apex predator.
Yeah, predator. Predator.
Predator.
Yes, apex predator.
Apex predator.
Very good, very good. And the last one, a decomposer.
Decomposer.
Yes, decomposer. Decomposer.
Decomposer.
Yes, very good. Well done, Leon and Jasmine. Well done. Thank you for practicing the words. Hopefully you can remember them, but we'll do these words again. Some of them are a little bit difficult, but you are pronouncing them beautifully. Thank you very much. It sounds very, very good. I like it. Okay. But that was all that I wanted us to look at today. The whole life cycle of plants and animals. So we will have a 20-minute break before we start with occupation, where we're going to look at what career you want to do. Okay, so I'll see you guys in 20 minutes. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.